Hey guys, welcome to the SimRacingPaddock. I'm William Marsh, and we are going to look at the latest update from Studio 397 for rFactor 2. So today we got the new roadmap update from Studio 397, and they also decided to roll out a new update for the sim, and this primarily is going to be performance enhancements, bug fixes, but also they did some updates for the GT3 Power Pack, which are worth a look. So let's just do a quick skim over of this new roadmap before diving into the sim and testing out the updates to the GT3 cars. So first off, Studio 397 is talking about a few upcoming events they're going to be attending. First off is called China Joy, and that is going to be August 3rd through the 6th. And it's interesting, I had never heard of this before, but it looks like, from looking on the website, it's almost like a Chinese mix of E3 and Comic-Con, which is interesting. It's cool seeing the, I've never heard this before, but it seems like China is starting to embrace gaming more with how they are handling this new generation and with just in general games and pop culture and media. So it does look like this is going to be a big event, and it's nice to see Studio 397 going over to Shanghai for this event. And then also there's the Sim Racing Expo in September, and Studio 397 is going to be there this year. They're saying they'll bring a few surprises. Last year, we got our first look at rain in the enhanced rain in rFactor 2 at the Sim Racing Expo. So who knows? There's going to be maybe some new stuff. And then the McLaren Shadow event. McLaren Shadow Project is sort of the follow-up to McLaren's World's Fastest Gamer, which had Rudy Van Buren win last year. And it sounds like that rFactor 2 is going to be utilized for the McLaren Shadow project. And I gotta say, that initial project with the collaboration with McLaren was great to see first off. And now it looks like it's going to be utilized again. And here's the exciting part. Building several new McLaren cars. Not one, not two, but it says several. So generally several means at least 3 new cars, or 3 new vehicles or whatever, and they are going to be available for free. So that's also really great. So I'm hoping maybe we'll see a McLaren F1 car or something like that. Please, please. Modern F1 car in rFactor 2, please. But yeah, so there's that. Upcoming releases. So today, as in it's out now, there's a new build and GT3 and Endurance Pack updates. So this new build is adding some new features, and there's a nice touch for VR fans. So I've talked about this in previous videos where there's Lock to Horizon, where your view locks to the horizon, supposedly helps with motion sickness and creates more immersion at times. It looks like rFactor 2 is going to have their own slightly different version of that. They're calling Stabilize Horizon, and it's an adjustable setting, so you can have low, medium, or high stabilization, which keeps it stable on bumpy tracks and works properly on banked tracks. That's a big thing, because if you remember my video talking about the Lock to Horizon feature in Assetto Corsa, when you're on a bank, it just feels like everything rotates around you. If you flip, it just completely gets disorienting. So seeing that this is taken into consideration with rFactor 2's VR implementation, that is a nice thing. And then a few changes in DX11, so it sounds like they are going to be working on more optimization, higher frame rates. Apparently there was an issue with brake glow that was very specific. Only showed up on 6-core CPUs with no hyperthreading. And that's very, very specific. And then rendering problems in shadow maps was also found and fixed. So, actually the shadow problem was with the 6-core CPU. Okay. But yeah, so it looks like that is being worked on as well. For tracks, add support for a new dirt map, a feature you'll see on Sebring, and that will be explained shortly in developer documentation. Oh yeah, by the way, Sebring's coming tomorrow. I'm so stoked for that. I'm excited. So, dirt map. What I'm guessing is it's going to be similar to iRacing, where dirt might be able to be kicked up onto the track. So let's hope that's how that works. Pit director, that's the guy I think that stands and tells you where to go out of the pits. So there's that. Last month roadmap, they talked about the GT3 update. They were going to update the GT3 cars, and it looks like they finally rolled that up. So it's going to have the new in-car traction control and ABS settings, the position lights you can see right there. So that's green lights for GT3 class, which is nice. Very latest set of tires, so it's on the newest tire models, which I liked on the endurance pack. So I'm excited to see how this handles on the GT3 cars. Balancer performance, that's nice because if I remember correctly, the BOP was a little off. And then development of the endurance pack, they were able to, looks like, improve the Orica and Norma LMP cars, which is nice. So these updates were released today, which is nice. They're saying, like, if you have a league, and if you don't want to make the switch, you can keep copy a previous version. So that's all fine and dandy. Tomorrow we get Sebring. So yeah, Sebring is one of my favorite racetracks. It's an interesting course. It's based off of an old, or built off of an old World War II airport, and it is a tricky circuit. And there was the Virtua LM version of Sebring that is in rFactor 2, but that was a port of the rFactor 1 version. But what is significant? This is the first laser scanned circuit that's been released first party for rFactor 2. So this is the first party laser scan track. It's using a high resolution mesh, and it works well from what I've heard, especially with the real road implementation. So I was talking with Marcel Offermans a little earlier today, and there's been a lot of confusion regarding real road and laser scan circuits. So a lot of people, they were spreading some disinformation regarding saying that real road does not support laser scan circuits. But I was talking with Marcel earlier today, and he was saying the reality of it is that a lot of people were trying to take Assetto Corsa laser scan circuits and just directly port them to rFactor 2. And they were bringing over the laser scan mesh from Assetto Corsa, and they were realizing it didn't work with rFactor 2. But it's not like it's with the way Real Road is set up, it's not a copy and paste job. For laser scan, it needs to have another mesh on top of it for Real Road, and that is a little more work than most modders really do. So that's why for some tracks, Real Road, or third-party tracks, Real Road didn't really work well. So Real Road does work with laser scan tracks, as we'll see tomorrow when Sebring comes out. And I'll do another stream showcasing Sebring tomorrow. Studio 397 is doing their community day, and I am looking to try to race in with that. That is at 11 o'clock my time, or roughly, I want to say it's 8 p.m. Central European time, as I was talking with Marcel. So I should be taking part in that event. Should be a lot of fun. But yeah, I gotta say, these screenshots look freaking beautiful. Just seeing the lighting looks a lot better, the depth of field. It's amazing seeing what Studio 397 has been doing with these effects. And then next month, the Risa Studios rFactor 2 bundle. Some of you might have seen teasers posted by Risa Studios. Officially announced they've been working hard on bringing some great content in rFactor 2. SD Sim Racing, I think so. And also that McLaren, which I forget if it's free or paid. But yeah, it's for the GT3 Power Pack. So yeah, so this pack will be released in August. So we can see this is, I want to say it's that Metal Moro prototype. I forget the name off the top of my head. And then this, I forget exactly what track this is. But, okay, so further down, also Formula V is coming to rFactor 2. This is such a fun car. It's basically no aerodynamics. You'd have no wing on front, no wing on back, so you have to rely on mechanical grip. And this should be such a fun car to drive in rFactor 2. Might make for some good online racing. And I forget where I saw it. Was it up here? Yeah, so no less than 4 cars and 2 tracks will be part of this pack. So they're saying at the very least, there's going to be 4 new cars, 2 tracks. So I think we can see 1 track here. And this is the same track, I think. And then 2 cars. So there are 2 more cars that should be coming. Please, something like in the classic Formula 1 range. Maybe the V10 F1 car or the V12, please. But something. And then last but not least, this is the community night I was talking about. So tomorrow, so today's 26th, tomorrow's 27th, they're going to be doing the community day, looking at the updated GT3 and endurance packs and at Sebring. So I'm going to be very excited to take a look at that and just race along with some of the rFactor 2 community. So enough about that roadmap. I think we covered just about everything. So let's fire up rFactor 2. And I just gotta say that, again, what Studio 397 has done with rFactor 2 so far is nothing short of amazing. They took this sim racing title that was essentially left for dead, and they breathed new life into it. Because if you consider everything that rFactor 2 was lacking back in the 2016 or 2016, when basically Studio 397 took over rFactor 2 development, and they were able to just bring it up to DirectX 11, add VR support, refine the weather, add more cars that people want to drive. Granted, it is DLC, but I mean, paid DLC, but at the same time, these are cars people want to drive. So that at least adds new life to it. The new UI, I don't really know much about that right now. I know that they are still working on refining it. I'm assuming they're working on the beta testing and everything, but yeah, I'm excited for the UI, but they really need to make sure that they do a good job with it. That's the thing. That we need to really, really make sure that it is at a point where we can adjust settings that we weren't able to in previous titles. So, let's see. Let's fire it up. Turn off display capture. I got rFactor 2 during Steam Summer Sale and could never get it to work in VR. Every time I booted rFactor 2 up and went to race or practice, my view would be about 10 feet above the car. So I think the simple thing is you might need to remember to map a button to reset your VR view, I think. So that I should be... that would be my bit of advice. Make sure the sensor is in proper view. But also BCJM, take into consideration that rFactor 2 is running on Steam VR. So you need to make sure you have your Steam VR properly configured. Make sure you have your Steam VR properly configured, your headset properly calibrated. I've never had that issue though, so I can't really help too far there. Stiggy, I'm going to see Codemasters next week. Next week I'm going to see Codemasters. So I'm excited for that, to see how that turns out. So let's see. One thing I wish that they did, that Studio 397 did, was they had the specific window for GT3. Because, let me check something. Or at least they had the series. This is kind of frustrating. This is kind of frustrating that, like, this series bar is not used, really. So, just random rant. Let's take a look. Fernandinho, I think I'm going to test that in tomorrow's stream. Because tomorrow's stream is when I'm going to be racing online with some people in the rFactor 2 community day. But that should be tested, and we'll take a look at it soon. So McLaren 650S GT3, that's what I put on the cover of the stream image. So let's take this for a test first. Well, Stiggy, I think they're likely going to be working on having a custom championship tab later on. So we'll see how that works. I don't know for certain, but we can just hope. But yeah. So let's take the McLaren around Matsusaka, aka Suzuka. That should be a fun combination. And we'll need to make sure we set the proper degrees of rotation. Because one of the things that is slightly frustrating with SemiCube specifically is with rFactor 2, I haven't been able to figure out how to automatically adjust degrees of rotation in SemiCube. So, for some reason, it just doesn't want to automatically adjust. So, we will go to rFactor 2 GT3 in our SemiCube settings. Hold on a sec. Come on. While waiting for this to load, we're just... yeah, not the easiest way. .540 degrees. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's fine. And then... yes, Fred L. Sebring's coming tomorrow. I'm excited. I do not have the McLaren Fanatic rim. I've been trying to get in touch with Fanatic, but they just haven't been responding to me lately, which is unusual. I'll put it that way. Hold on, let's check something. Here we go. Move my SemiCube window. And let's find my rFactor to 540. Yes. That looks correct.
Data logging disabled.
I know this will sound borderline conspiracy theory-esque, but Rashid, I think you might be onto something. It just seems like ever since they hired SimRacing Girl, they have not responded to my emails. So my theory is if they're trying to do most of their promotion, preview, and possibly review stuff through her or Ollie Pakala or their PR team. But yeah, I'll see. I talked with Thomas Jackermeyer back about a month ago when I was in Los Angeles. I just bumped into him randomly at an auto museum, and I got to chat with him a little bit, which was pretty cool. So, okay, initial impressions on the way this car's feeling. Slightly more natural, I think. Very slightly more natural. It feels like there's a little more flex, a little more leeway in the tires, a little less bouncy, which is really nice. Also, who knows, like, this is rain, so rain could affect findings, but so far I'm really enjoying the feeling. But yeah, the tires, they really do feel a little more elastic, which is nice, and I totally botched my braking point there. Yeah, keep that in mind, Will. It's raining. Interior sound good for this car. They really do. Let me turn up the volume a little bit for this, though. There we go. Traction control and ABS mapped. That would be very smart for me to do. Let me actually do that real quick. So, let's see. Controls. That would be... Yes, traction control up and down. And then ABS up, ABS down. Have I heard of adrenaline control and adrenaline experience in the Netherlands? No, I have not. And let's do engine brake map up, engine brake map down. Does that do anything? No. ABS system, that's working. Traction control, yes. So, let's take a look and see how this is. So let's move this down. Ate Kirchhoff, yes, I believe I'm Facebook friends with him. He's one of the DWC drivers in iRacing, if I remember correctly. So let's try something. Traction control to 0. Yep, you can see that steps out. So that's sort of traction control test, especially in the rain. And you can hear the traction control kick in. So here, second gear, flat out, not stepping out at all. So you can just really hear that traction control kick in. So this is a little better. Just experimenting with how the TCS mapping is. Pretty good. ABS. So here, hard on the brake. Big lockup. So we'll bump up the ABS a bit. Why there is sun and rain? Because there can be sun and rain at the same time. As you can see, the rain is stopping. So the rain stopped now. Where is the rainbow? The pack is paid. It's the paid DLC pack that received the update, but I highly recommend this pack if you like GT3 racing. It really is a great pack. McLaren is a lot of fun to drive. It's a challenge, and it's exciting. Yannick, I have some unfortunate news to report. Unfortunately, I was planning on going to the Sim Racing Expo, but unfortunately, I don't think I can make it this year. Where I had about $1,000 saved to fly over to Europe, but unfortunately, the clutch is starting to go out on my car, and I'm gonna have to use the majority of my savings to replace it. So unfortunately, I just simply don't have the funds to go to Europe this year. Which, it's unfortunate, but hey, sometimes it's life. Hopefully next year, though. I'll make sure to try to budget for it, but yeah. So now we get an idea on how this handles in dry, but we're currently using wet tires. So let's stop real quick. Actually, it looks like there's still some rain. So we're going to fast forward the time a bit and go general, actually advanced. Actually, no, we were using slicks there. Okay. That would explain why there was a little more understeer than I would have anticipated. So right now we're just waiting for the... Actually, let's do this. We are going to change the session settings. Let's go to sunny. Sunny should be fine. So, mini rant. One thing that Studio 397 should try to focus on, Real Road is a great feature. They have the option to have presets. A lot of their tracks, including the first-party tracks or third-party affiliates like Matsusaka, only have one preset. Test Team Medium. This is the only preset you can choose for the track. And you can see, you can have it naturally progress over the course of a race weekend, but you can only start with the medium preset. If you include a feature, try to make sure you do it right. and unfortunately it doesn't work as well if you don't have that variety. It comes off more gimmicky. I have light track rubber, medium track rubber, heavy track rubber, and green track or something. Sort of like what Assetto Corsa does have. Okay, ran over. So we did a little testing in McLaren. We might jump back in that later. And then we have the RXC Turbo. This has always been a weird car. Hold on. Scripted. But still, we just have like Nuno Pinto. We still have only normal. Or wait, not normal. We have green and okay, saturated light. Okay. Well, that just doesn't make sense. It should be why would they do that? Huh. I think it's still slightly rant-worthy. Because that just doesn't make sense. You have to be unscripted to have track rubber? Okay. But yeah, let's try the RXC Turbo. I haven't really done much driving with this car. And it's unique. It's not in any other PC sim. I know that Forza Motorsport 7 has it, and that car is lively in Forza Motorsport 7. Or actually, is it in Project Cars 2? It might be in Project Cars 2, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so let's test out this Radical. And degrees of rotation, 580. So let's go to 580. There we go. Okay, so Project Cars 2 might have this car too, which is nice. So now we are driving in at least dry conditions, which is nice. Wait for the track to go green. But yeah, the thing is, rFactor 2 is a very solid sim. It's these little touches, though, those little nitpicks, those little limitations that end up really hampering it and make it feel a little lesser than other things. But who knows, with what they're learning from doing laser scan Sebring and stuff like that, we might see more and more enhancements and stuff. But yeah, they need to work on enhancements and stuff. So I can hear the traction control kicking in. Let's turn it down to 2. But yeah, I think this edition of the traction control map and everything, that is a great new feature for rFactor 2, because think about it, over the course of a long run, in the beginning, you might be able to use more throttle and be more aggressive because the tires are new. As the tires wear out, the rear end's going to start stepping out more, so you adjust the traction control to try to make the car a little more stable, get the car to last longer over the course of a run. So I'm excited to see this traction control map and everything. Simber, if I remember correctly, I want to say that the groundwork for hybrid systems are starting to be laid down for rFactor 2. And so the groundwork is starting to be laid down there thanks to that partnership with Formula E, getting the hybrid and ERS system being set up. So having the recharging and energy recovery in the Formula E, I think they're starting to work on making it a little more dynamic. We'll see though, because as mentioned earlier in the stream, they're going to be working on bringing more McLaren cars to the sim. And possibly, if one of those is a modern McLaren F1 car, we might be able to see those systems simulated a little more. I like the feeling of this car under braking. The car starts to pitch in under trail braking, which allows for a little easier turn in. It's heavy-ish steering though, which some people might like, some people might not. So you could always turn down the force feedback a bit. Let's turn up the ABS a bit. I want to test out the ABS in after 130R. Whoa, my bad. Remember guys, be careful. Those curbs can be very dangerous. Okay, Simber, thanks for that heads up. We'll adjust that real quick. Let's do this. That'll work. But it kind of cracks me up. This Radical, it sounds like a freaking diesel. So we're going to go hard on the brakes here. So you can really hear that ABS chirp, 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 chirp. But I'm not feeling the flat spot. That's nice. So again, hard on the brake. Trail brake, feel the car pitch itself in. But again, this car feels a lot more drivable than, say, the pre-patch version of this. The tires, it feels like they're communicating quite a bit more. They're feeling a little more elastic, maybe a bit more flex. So I'm happy with this. I really am. So let's do ABS down to 2 and see how this works. So I could feel the right front tire lock up there, just with the way the weight shifted into that corner. I wish this update might have added an extra GT3 car though. Who knows? But hey, at least it's a good setup for having a widespread. Okay, so I'm gonna lock up the brake this time. So you remember last lap I was doing all the way up ABS and I was hard on the brake, no lockup. You just saw that lockup right there. So yeah. Patrick, can't get rFactor 2 to work with your direct drive wheel. Well, first off, you need to make sure you have the strength set up properly. So one of the things is that, if I remember correctly, rFactor 2, you might need to invert the force feedback. So in the controller INI file, or it might be controller JSON file now, there's a line that says that like maximum force feedback strength, and it's a positive number. I want to say it's like 10,000. You want to shift it to negative 10,000. You want to invert the force feedback, or else if you steer a little bit, it'll lock into left or lock to the right. So keep that in mind. That's one of the major things. And then also make sure you're running, depending on the wheel, for example, I'm running the large midge open sim wheel. You want to run at about, for my wheel, I'm running 30%. If you're using the small midge, that might be closer to 50%. But also that comes down to personal preference. Do you like a stronger wheel or a weaker wheel? So for me, I feel that 30% is a sweet spot. That's where it feels pretty close to real life in my opinion. And that's what works well for me. So I am going to be doing a series about setting up direct drive wheels. There's also one of my friends, Sebastian Keismel, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's done a few videos doing open sim wheel setup guides. They are a little dated though. I think most of his videos, they're either running late MMOS or early SemiCube. And yeah, so Simber, I'm going to be making a video talking about that subject. And the simple fact of the matter is, it's for overhead. So I'll use an example. Think about if you're running a Fanatec Club Sport Wheel version 2.5, you are going to, if you have the force feedback maxed and you're going into corners like these, you're going to start to encounter clipping. What clipping is when the forces are getting so high, they're either are starting to get distorted or lost. So imagine you're listening to music through a pair of speakers. Sometimes the higher you turn up the speakers, the audio starts getting a little distorted. The mids will blend into the highs and the lows will start to get a little messy, and the audio just starts getting distorted. It's a similar concept for force feedback, where that's why sometimes you hear about force feedback wheels, say like the Club Sport wheel, people will turn them down to about 80%, or 80% gain in the wheel. That's because you can turn it higher up and you will have that sort of like precision without the clipping. And Simber, yeah, that's the thing. The Logitech G25 has approximately a peak torque of, I want to say it's around 2.9 Newton meters of torque, if I remember correctly. So the Logitech G25, honestly, it actually is the most powerful of the Logitech wheels. The G27 was a little weaker. The G29 and 920 were a little weaker after that. But the G29 or G25 has the peak torque of 2.9. So if you try to utilize the full 2.9 Newton meters of torque, and you are going to have it maxed out, you're going to clip. You're going to lose some of that precision of force feedback. So keep that in mind. And then look at the Fanatec Club Sport Wheel version 2.5. If you try to take advantage of the full, I want to say it's about like 7.5 Newton meters of torque that come out of that motor. It's not publicly available information. They say more than 6 or more than 7. It's like 7.5 to 8 Newton meters of torque. And if you try to get that full 100% strength out, you're going to get clipping, you're going to get distortion. And that is something you don't really want in most cases for sim racing. So, why would I use a 30 Newton meter wheel? I would say it's the overhead. For example, why shoot video in 4K when you're going to output in 1080p? You have more overhead to work with. You are going to have the ability to go higher, but if you set it lower, you can make sure you're using the full amount without clipping. So, for example, I'm about to go through 130R in this car, and I'm gonna feel the forces load up on this wheel, but it's nice knowing I have the confidence that going over that curb while this wheel's under load, or going over the curb on the side, I'm going to still feel that through the wheel. If I have it maxed out on Logitech G25 or even a Club Sport wheel, that is going to be lost. And it is a benefit. Okay, Yannick. Okay, let me explain something with the SimRacingBay wheels. So, the small midge-based open sim wheel, that is using a motor from Midge. So the large Midge and small Midge are 130 series motors from Midge, the brand. The small Midge is the it's the 10010 motor, which it has a constant torque of 10 Newton meters, which means if it's constantly spinning, it can achieve a constant force of 10 Newton meters. It can achieve a peak torque of the 20 Newton meters. So the peak torque is like the small burst of torque, and that is something that we can feel. Like, so that is the number we look at more as sim racers, because we're not having the wheel constantly spinning around and round and round at hundreds of RPMs. We're using it as a force feedback, so we're feeling that peak torque. And then the large Midge motor is the same 130 series, but it is the 15015, which is capable of 15 Newton meters of constant torque and 30 Newton meters of peak torque. So hopefully that alleviates a little bit of confusion. So it is not the same motor. They are two different motors, and for the 30 Newton meter, it is a it generally requires a stronger power supply. So when you're configuring the wheel, that's why you see the power supply saying it's better for 30 Newton meters. So yeah, these model numbers and stuff can be a little confusing. I'll talk about it a little more in my review. So I'm going to be reviewing this large Midge open sim wheel in the near future. Going to be working on capturing footage of it over this weekend. No, Yannick, it is not power supply based. It's two different motors, but basically the large Midge motor requires a higher current. Not higher current, higher power. So it requires more power. That's why it's the, I want to say 700 watt or something like that. Yeah, so it's like 720 watt or something. Thank you, Ivan, for subscribing. But yeah, so with the way it is, it's a more powerful motor, but you just need more power. Yeah, Nick, I'm getting kind of confused by what you're talking about. Why would you want two power supplies for one wheel? Just get the more powerful power supply. Hey, Sim Racer Flight Sim 1000, it's been a while. Where have you been, man? But yeah, so let's get a little back on topic with this car. this car, I think this new update has really, really made this car better. Because earlier, when I was test driving this car, I wasn't as big a fan of it. Still, this is a snappy car. It has a pretty quick steering ratio, all things considered. So, it's a quicker steering ratio, but this is still a very fun car. Is the AccuForce Pro V2 a good buy? I'd say, in some ways, yes. So, the AccuForce V2, what it really has going for it is it's a wheel and base combo. So, the AccuForce Pro V2 for around $1,300, I think. Yeah, it's $1,299. You get the AccuForce Pro base, and you get the rim. And the rim includes a button box, and also it has a quick release. So you get everything you need out of the box to be able to drive, apart from pedals and rig and whatever. And one of the nice things about the AccuForce V2 is it uses Thrustmaster mounting holes. So it can mount on a fairly wide variety of sims. It has a smaller-ish footprint versus an open sim wheel. Open sim wheel, you need a more specialized mounting solution. So the AccuForce V2 is a little better for mounting. And the only complaints I've heard is the force feedback. It's still a direct drive wheel. It's still going to be miles above Fanatec or Thrustmaster belt-driven wheels, and just like an entire racetrack ahead of Logitech wheel. But you are still, apparently, it's a hybrid servo stepper motor. And if you've done a side-by-side comparison with an open sim wheel or sim steering and an AccuForce, apparently you're going to feel a difference. And the common consensus I've heard is the AccuForce is not as good as an OSW or a sim steering. Personally, I have not tested an AccuForce myself, and odds are I'm not going to be testing one in the near future. So I'd say it is a good buy for people looking for an all-in-one direct drive solution. But if you do have the budget, or if you are in the Fanatec ecosystem, you might want to look at Fanatec's direct drive wheel or look at an OSW, because the OSW can provide higher torque, a higher fidelity system, I think, and I think that it is a better solution, personally. I love my open sim wheel. I really do. It's not perfect, but I freaking love it. So yeah. So now let's jump into the Mercedes. I think that should be a fun car to test out. But is it just me, or does this really sound like a diesel? Okay, I'm going to be blunt. Remember, I was one of the first people to test out the Feel VR in person. I was one of the first people in the United States to get my hands on it. As I tested it, I can't recommend it. As I tested it, and I'm slightly nervous, to be honest, because still we haven't heard too much about it. We are still waiting on information. Apparently now the release date has been pushed back to like 2019 or something, and it's like, okay, really? But the thing is that it being direct drive is one thing. It being reliable and versatile is another. And we'll have to see how it turns out. Because from my first impressions driving to Feel VR, I wasn't exactly a fan. I mean, you can clearly tell it's a direct drive wheel. It's freaking strong. It almost ripped my freaking hands off a couple times. But they need to do the quality control. they need to refine it, especially on the software side. So, for example, they were just using the standard direct input drivers, and I wasn't a fan of the feeling of it. It felt very notchy. It felt very heavy. It didn't feel dynamic at all, nearly to the same extent of when I've tested out my open sim wheel or even the sim steering. So it just didn't work as well as it should have. And hopefully, as it gets closer to release, it gets more refined and I can eat my words. But as it is right now, from when I tested it, I can't recommend it. And thank you, Cowie Peterson, for subscribing. Thank you. So hold on a second. I need to adjust my degrees of rotation. We were running 580 degrees of rotation with that Radical. Now this Mercedes, it drops it all the way down to 400 degrees of rotation. So
data logging disabled.
Yeah, very, very, very close steering lock. But yeah, personally, I can't recommend the Feel VR. So the Fanatec DD1, there's a few things that really come to mind when we are talking about that specific wheel. The first thing is, are you already in the Fanatec ecosystem? So the Fanatec ecosystem is great, especially if you are looking to minimize USB devices. So if you think about the way my high-end rig is set up, I have the open sim wheel. I have this adapter Fanatec rim. Or basically, I have this Fanatec adapter. I have the Heusinkveld Engineering handbrake. I have the Heusinkveld Engineering shifter, and I have the Heusinkveld Engineering pedals. So, taking into consideration how this all works, that is 5 USB devices I have plugged into my computer. One thing that is great about what this upcoming Fanatec direct drive wheel is going to be is if you are part of the Fanatec ecosystem, you are just going to have the base to plug in. So if you have a Fanatec rim, Fanatec pedals, Fanatec shifter, Fanatec handbrake, you can plug all of those into the base, and that just uses one USB port. So that's one of the great things about going with Fanatec, where you're part of that ecosystem. And basically, what's the benefit of having just one USB device in? To take into mind that that some racing titles will only support 4 USB devices. So for example, as I was testing the early access of Wreckfest, the early access only supported 4 USB devices. So I would have to unplug my sequential shifter every time I would plug in my want to play Wreckfest. So every time I wanted to play Wreckfest, I would have to unplug my sequential shifter because I needed to use the rim, I needed to use the pedals, I needed to use my wheel, and I liked to use the handbrake. So with that being said, that I've just had to make compromises for that. And ultimately Wreckfest, it did get to add support for more than 4 devices, so now I can use all my devices there, but it's inconvenient. But with the Fanatec Direct Drive, all of that's one device and would have no problems with that. So that's one of the beauties of the Fanatec Direct Drive wheel. It allows for that capability. And I just find it funny some people are just saying, no way, no way. But I think having all of the devices plugged into one unit, I think that's going to be a selling point for the Fanatec direct drive wheel. If you are part of the Fanatec ecosystem, it is a great idea. So yeah, that's one of the things I think about the DD1 being a good option. Also consider wheel and rim for about $1,300, $1,400, depending on what you do. I could turn on the virtual mirror if I want. I would just press 3 on the keyboard. There we go. So this car, again, feels like a good improvement. So I remember driving this car in the first update. It was very snappy, very snappy. Got kind of a little tank slapper happy at times. You can still definitely get the rear end to step out in this car, because that's a lot of low end torque out of this V8. But this is a very fun car to drive. Let's turn down the traction control a click. That might be 2 clicks. And that should get the rear end to step out. But I think they've also might have made minor... Yeah, that really got the rear end stepping out. But yeah, I think they made some minor improvements to the interior sound of this car. Sounds a little better. I think a little better mixed. A little more depth. Still not the best, but it's something at least. But yeah, I'm enjoying this car. The steering lock still feels slightly off. Does the cabling coming off of the rim ever get in the way or tangled? The way I have it set, it's pretty out of the way. There were a couple times where it might have gotten a little tangled, but this is a good cable. It's very beefy, very strong. In the beginning, I did have to really get a little over this feeling, because the cable would drag a little bit on the frame of the wheel mount. And it just took me a few driving sessions to get over it, get used to it. And now I don't think of it. I don't think about the problem. But if you remember my early days testing out this adapter, I was having a weird issue where all of a sudden, like, it would press every button on the rig, or on the rim. It was like having a connection issue. Thankfully, now it seems like it's been fixed, but I was having that issue at first, and that's one of the pitfalls of having a third-party adapter at times. But right now, it seems to be working just fine. I haven't had the issue in months, so I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, this car still feels great. I like this car. It's fun. It's not my favorite car in the pack. I think that might be the McLaren, but it's a great car. It really is. The engine sounds are good. Maybe a little clinical, but it's a nice sound. I wish it was maybe slightly more raw. Hey, Stuart, he's not in the Bermuda Islands right now. He's in Boston. So he's not Mr. Bermuda Islands right now. Well, I'm enjoying the feeling of this car a lot more than it was at initial launch. So, thoughts on this car? Solid improvement. Very refined and... yeah. Interesting though, the sound mixing in the exterior cameras might need to be a little bit improved. So let's jump out. So that's a Mercedes. What's left? We did the McLaren, Mercedes, Radical. Oh yeah, the Callaway Corvette C7. This was another fun car that is, I think, underrepresented in sim racing. So if I remember correctly, the only other car or only other sim to have this is Race Room. So we will check this out. We'll have to adjust the degrees of rotation, so we will make sure to do that. Hold on a second. Let me check something. So, we might have an interesting development. Let's see. Hold on a second. Sorry about this, guys. I don't mean to be texting, but if this works out... oh. Hold on. Gonzalo, I am using the Heusinkveld Engineering SimRig GT. This is currently my favorite rig. This thing is the sturdiest rig I have ever driven with, and I've driven with quite a few rigs so far. It's funny though, because I'm currently still testing things such as the GT Omega Art, which is an okay entry-level cockpit. It's a little weird for me. And then I am... or what am I saying? So that rig is a little weird for my size. So yeah, I have the GT Omega Art right there. So it's a little off camera. You can see GT Omega Art. You can also see the fact that my right monitor is not here right now. My right monitor failed, so I had to send it out for repairs. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah. So it sounds like tomorrow I'll be able to release a review of Sebring. So I will take a look at that. Likely tonight, work on a review and get that up for you tomorrow, because Sebring comes out tomorrow. So freaking excited for that. So let's go to 410 degrees rotation, because that's what this car uses. Man, that engine note sounds good. Best car in rFactor 1. Oof. In rFactor 1, I loved the Ford Zaxby's Capri from the DRM Revival mod. Great great free car, so much fun, but it was just a blast to drive. In rFactor 2, right now I'm gonna have to say the Porsche 911 RSR, or the GTE RSR car. That car is so much fun to drive. Piercing engine note in the best possible way, but it's a blast to drive. For open wheel, I'm gonna agree with Simber. The Formula Renault 3.5, that's a great car. Really, driving that car at Silverstone is a treat. Going through, I think it's called Maggots Beckett's or something like that, the S's, feeling that left front tire lift up as you're going through some of the corners, and then the right front skipping on the surface. That's just sim racing bliss, I'll call it. That is a great feeling. Thoughts on field of view in one single screen. So, this might be an unpopular opinion for some people, but for single screens, I accept a little bit of leeway. There's always the drive the right field of view or you're a moron and things like that. Because, heck, I saw a thread in Reddit the other day saying, why does Jimmy Broadbent drive with such a wide field of view? And part of it is to make it more presentable. If you're driving with an authentic field of view all the time, it doesn't look as exciting for the average viewer. And you can adapt to a wider field of view. And this field of view I'm driving with is pretty close to realistic. It is relatively close, but I do give myself a little leeway. I do give myself some leeway to be able to actually be a little more comfortable. Because if I drove with such a close field of view, then I think that it just doesn't feel as good with a single screen. For triple screens, I try to maintain as realistic a field of view as possible. No doubt about it. For triple screens, you want a really authentic field of view. For VR, you don't really have to worry about it as much because it tries to calculate the authentic field of view for you. And for the most part, it works well. For Race Room, you kind of have to adjust the VR world scale, but for most titles, you hop into VR, and it looks just fine. And yeah, but for single screen, I'd say a little leeway is acceptable. Don't go too wide, don't go too narrow. And this is the sweet spot for me, I think. I like this field of view for driving with a single screen, and it gives me a good feeling of where the car is. So that's the thing. You want a good feeling of where to place your car. You want to be able to use all the track, like I'm doing. You want to be able to hit your apexes. You want to be able to find your braking point. You want to find your acceleration point. You want to find the corner exit point. And that's the point. That's what you're looking for. And if you find that and are able to be consistent with a field of view you choose, then I think it works well. And yeah, again, it also comes down to immersion versus competition. If you're looking for the immersion factor, get the triple screens and feel free to spend hours finding the right field of view. So there's that, if you want the most immersion possible. But if you are looking to be competitive, some competitive drivers drive with a wider field of view. For example, some of the world's fastest gamer stuff, they will actually drive with a wider field of view because that gives them a better view of the cars around them. So you can look out the side mirrors and see other cars. So yeah. GM Gaming, they did update the GT3 pack. Unfortunately, it's no additional cars, but they updated the tire model, they added in traction control mapping, and they added anti-lock brake mapping. And I gotta say, they did a great job making this feel a lot better. This genuinely feels a lot better. All these cars I've been driving feel like significant improvements, which I am super happy to say. And it's not that the cars felt bad previously, but it's just these feel better. It feels more natural. The tires feel that much better. And I'm happy with whatever they did. So I turned down the traction control, and you can see the rear end starting to step out a little more, which is pretty nice. Do you reckon we'll get British Touring Car Championship content this weekend? I would find that highly unlikely in rFactor 2 because that would totally come out of left field with no warning, no announcement or anything. But if you're looking for BTCC, Race Room has some good BTCC content. So yeah, let's see, it's 3:22 right now. So let's do a race. Let's put a race together. Let's see. Qualifying. Where should we do this though? Silverstone could be a good option. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm going to go with the Corvette. $50-lap race. Actually, no. Let's do a timed race. Actually, let's see. 50. Yeah, 1 hour. Oh, I forgot the Bentley. I totally forgot about that. Let's do the race in the Bentley. That should be exciting. Black, red, and white. That matches the colors of my logo. Okay, so we'll do a 1 hour race. And in the middle of the race, we will have it start raining. So that should be exciting. So this will basically mean that we'll do 24 cars. AI strength will do 100. So qualifying and race. So this should work. Jordan, in my opinion, yes. In my opinion, they do feel a lot better. So that's the Bentley. Hold on. I mean, everyone does want more content, myself included. I think it would be smart for them to have more content. But I think ultimately it does come down to what they can do, because it does come down to what offers they have on the table. Because like you mentioned, oh, like, what about Ferrari? What about Ferrari or something? Ferrari, I'm guessing, is an expensive license. That's why for a long time we didn't see Ferrari in Gran Turismo. We didn't see Ferrari in Assetto Corsa at first, and then they brought Ferrari in style. Ferrari, I'm guessing, is an expensive license. Ford might not be as much. And at least we have the United Racing Department. We have the URD Detroit, which is nice. Will we ever get better Formula 1 cars? I hope so. I hope so. But again, it comes down to licensing. Will we see it through licensing? So we'll do a few laps in qualifying and then see how it goes into race. I really wish someday that some of the Assetto Corsa mods will be ported to rFactor 2.
Data logging disabled.
So let's check degrees of rotation real quick. 540, so we need to adjust it in SemiCube. There we go. Have I tried the Formula 1 hybrid mods? Well, I've done the Formula hybrid, not Formula 1 hybrid. So this will be interesting, seeing how the balance of power works for these cars. So I didn't drive too much with this car in the other days of rFactor 2, so let's see how this is. Pretty big blind spots. VR support for rFactor 2, in my experience, works well. I've had a few people say they have issues, but also taking consideration I have a GTX 1080, so most programs won't really be too hamstringed by my system. So for the most part, it's worked well for me. So again, this car feels good. It feels like an improvement over the previous version of this car. But it doesn't feel as planted as the other cars. Could just be because this is a behemoth of the car or something. This should be an interesting event because middle of the race, it's going to start raining. The Happy Gamer, I freaking love this pack. And I wholeheartedly recommend it. I recommend getting the Endurance pack. Having LMP2, LMP3, and GTE cars is pretty awesome. This thing has quite a bit of low-end torque, though. Hardy, I'd say it's okay. It wasn't really anything to write home about. It was functional, and then I heard at the press event after I got there, it broke. So I'm a little concerned about their reliability too, but it's an okay load cell system. Personally, I'd recommend the CSL Elite load cell pedals. Same price, roughly. TM Gaming, I have a few live streams showcasing GTR2, actually. Such as the driving school. You can hear, even with that traction control kicking in, this thing will step out the rear. So let's see where we qualify. So I'm seeing a checkered flag, but saying I have one more lap. Let's just do one more lap to be safe. And this will be a 1 hour race, guys. We'll do 1 hour race and... Oh, I have to pit? Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. So, okay, one other small touch I want to mention about rFactor 2 that's freaking awesome is if you press both the left and right paddle shifter, it goes straight to neutral. Some real life race cars have that, and other sims, they don't have that option. So it's cool seeing that. So it looks like we're close. So let's finish the session. And interesting. Oh, Ollie Pakula. Yeah, that's not authentic. He would have finished a lap. Hold on a second. Garage, advanced. Disable both traction and ABS. Huh. But would that still keep the map in the race? Okay, so let's go into the garage. And we're gonna have to make at least one stop. Will this show our qualifying times? No, it won't. $20 laps. So let's see, general. I wish it allowed you to preset your tire change ahead of time. But we'll have to change controls, I guess. So, display. Let's do this. Up, down, right, left to be safe. LCD mode. Isn't there LCD select? I guess not. So
logging disabled.
So in this system, I'm using a GTX, or not G, in this system for the CPU, I am actually using the Intel i7 7700K. And I have it overclocked to 4.9 gigahertz. Whoa, I locked it up. Not good. So let's take a look at this LCD settings. So we'll adjust it for rain as the race goes on. Okay, he locked it up a bit. Whoa! Okay, that's a little oversteer. Let's up the TCS map. I haven't heard anything about Samsung really. And we'll change the ABS. Get some heat in these tires. Let's try one ABS, and we'll see how the tires feel. So I do have invulnerability on. I know it's kind of cheapish, but AI can sometimes be a little crazy. And I want to survive this race for you guys. Felt the car get a little squirrely under braking for that corner. Hugging this a little tightly. But I think when it starts to be raining, I think that's when this race is going to really shift around. Because everyone will need to pit, go to rain tires. But yeah, it's clear, sunny right now, and then we're going to start seeing it get a little cloudy. Going to turn the ABS map up to 2. We're closing in though. Let's check on something. Okay, Rosendo is less than 3 seconds behind. A little late on the brakes there. Thanks, West Vegas. I'm fast when I don't spin. Okay. He has a bit of a run. Drag the brake a bit. Okay, looks like I'm gonna have a run into this next corner. Fake left, go right. Oh, little block, little bump. Thank you to whoever it is who's subscribing. I think you can understand why I'm not really looking right now. OFAC, thank you. But it's interesting how he went down to legitimately block me. So we were talking about Race Room in my previous live stream, and I was noticing how we were having issues in terms of situational awareness from the AI, where they were just hitting me randomly, and they just didn't seem to have too much of an idea of where I was. It seems like these AI have a little better situational awareness, so they can see better where I am at. By the way, guys, exciting news. When we started this live stream, I was at 16,998 subscribers, and we've heard a subscriber ding a few times. That means we are at over 17,000 subscribers on the channel now. Whoop whoop! Have some fun surprises in store for when I hit 20,000. That should be exciting for the community. So keep that in mind. I'm in. Whoa! What was I saying about situational awareness? Wait for it to be safe to re-enter. I mean, that wasn't really a dive bomb. But that was irritating. We'll have to try and make our way back. Tire's a little flat spotted right now. I don't know about any Fanatic promotions going on for right now. Okay, let's try move to the outside. But yeah, I'm really feeling the flat spots right now. He just swung to the left and hit me, okay. So AI does need some improvements, but not horrible, I should say. Oh, I just got punted. But I made the pass still. Bartrab. I'm gonna likely make a guide about building PCs. I wanted to wait until graphics card prices dropped, and they finally are dropping. I finally saw a GTX 1080 for under 500 bucks. So I think it's finally getting to be a good time to actually do a video talking about building a PC. Let's take a look at our tires real quick. So kind of flat spotted, but decent temps right now. Little far. So we're in 5th place right now. So we lost 2 spots when I got spun, unfortunately. Looks like behind us they're freight training a bit. So I think we'll have to make up some positions through rain driving. We'll see how that works. But if you're noticing, when we started the race, it was clear. Now we're starting to see some clouds form a bit. So clouds are forming, which means water's getting stored in the air in the form of clouds. Soon those clouds will get a little too heavy and the water will fall. Yeah, I want to say the computer I'm using right now as configured is about a $1,900 computer, maybe $2,000. I'm using the GTX 1080 graphics card. I bought that for about $530. I'm using the GTX the i7 7700K, which I got for about $260. That's water cooled. Using the MSI Gaming Pro Carbon Z270 motherboard, and that was about $170. So yeah, prices, they will jump up a little quickly. Okay, battle in the murk. Giving him the inside line. But it's crazy how much he swings out. Little bump. Rubbin's racing, boys. Okay, let's push a little more. Okay. There we go. Make a pass on the outside. Yes, please. Thank you very much. So in my secondary system, I am using GTX 970, and that is borderline for virtual reality. For people, I'd say GTX 970 is a minimum for most VR applications, and I've heard that GTX 970 is about even with a 1060, but the nice benefit of the 1060 is if you get the higher VRAM version of it, you get 6 gigabytes of VRAM rather than about 4 with the GTX 970. And VRAM is becoming more and more important as we're seeing higher resolution and VR become a little more commonplace. So something interesting I've noticed while streaming that I haven't even talked about, no performance hiccups. So I have not seen a single performance hiccup while driving. That's kind of shocking for rFactor 2. So they did mention that they did do some DX11 tweaks and improvements, but I didn't think it'd be this stable. This is the most stable I've ever had rFactor 2 be. So we're currently 10 seconds back of third place. Sheesh. I don't know if we can close in. Solid Jutsu. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Hello, and thanks for watching. This is with AI cars. This is racing with, I think it's a 24 car field. Yeah, 24 opponents. So 24 opponents, and this is rock solid. I'm shocked. Didn't even have a frame rate hiccup when we started the race. With Assetto Corsa, I get a few frame skips when I am actually starting the race. So I'm shocked with how stable this is right now. Granted, I am using the GTX 1080, and I want to say I'm high settings, I'm not full or anything, but with how rFactor 2 performed in the past, with like memory leaks and things like that, this is so much better. Which version of rFactor 2 am I running? I'm running the latest version, Steam, the latest update that came out today. So we are starting to close in on Rosendo. Still about 9 seconds back, slightly better than 10. And we are starting to see more and more clouds forming in the sky. So I think it's around the halfway point of this race. That is when we are going to see this race starting to get a little darker, a little rainy-ish. Tires seem to be holding up well. We are on the hard compound tires, so that should last us a little while. Whew. Little oversteer. So we have 40 minutes left in the race, so we've been driving for about 20 minutes. I'm so freaking excited for the Riza Studios bundle. It really is something that I think will help bolster it. I'm excited to see what the other two cars are going to be, though. I'm really hoping for one of their open wheel cars, such as the Formula V12. That would be so much fun to drive in rFactor 2. Also, someone needs to port Kart Factor Extreme to rFactor 2. So, Tokena, if you go to studio397.com, there's the new roadmap for rFactor 2. And they updated the GT3 pack for rFactor 2 to the latest tire model. They added position lights. They added a few new features to the cars. Unfortunately, there's no new car added, but I'd say that these new tire model, or the new tire model for these cars, is a significant improvement. Almost done with 10 laps. Whoa. A little too quick there. Drag the brake a bit. Okay, so that's 8.4 seconds back. So we are closing in. Little squirrely under braking right there. I might tweak the ABS map a little higher because we have the flat spots. It's making the car a little more difficult to brake. So we'll turn up the ABS to 3. And the traction control is giving me the good amount of slip that I am liking, which is good. I totally messed up that corner there, though. But yeah, this Bentley, it does feel better. The car is really coming in nicely, though. It is starting to fall off a bit, but I'm enjoying the feeling of the car. I'd say my favorite GT3 car out of the entire pack would have to be the Callaway Corvette C7R. Second would be the the McLaren 650S GT3. My third favorite would be the Mercedes. Fourth would be the Radical, and then this would bring up the rear of the pack, I think. They're all really good cars. It's just some others fit my personal driving style better than others. But man, it seems like those Radicals might be slightly OP now. I'm not sure though. Because first and second are the Radicals. Behind me, I want to say is that looks like possibly a Mercedes. I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, those Radicals just clocked out almost 20 seconds ahead of me. So maybe they can tweak the balance of power or balance of performance soon. I always say balance of power. That was an expansion pack, I think, for Star Wars Empire at War. Steve, I am going to be running the Mazda MX-5 Cup. And honestly, I'm more excited for the Mazda than the Porsche. The Porsche was a really fun car, and I was okay with it. But I think the Mazda fits my driving style a little better. So the Mazda, like, you'll need, I think it's a Japanese pack. But I think that'll be a really fun series to run because of the nature of the car. It's relatively easy car to drive and should make for good racing. So, question is, are we gonna catch this guy before the rain hits? Because you can see clouds. The clouds are getting a little more ominous. Let's check the weather forecast. 0% rain. But yeah, shameless plug, Wednesday evenings, or Thursday very, very early morning in Europe. That is the Sim Racing System Championship, and we are running the Mazda MX-5 Cup. I don't know full track list yet. But yeah, we are seeing more and more clouds, guys. So we're just pushing. Tires are starting to feel better now, because we're not flat spotting them. It seems like the flat spots are getting a little ironed out, which is nice. I can still feel them a bit, but not as prevalent as what we were before. So we'll put in, it looks like, is that 20 gallons or 20 liters in the next fuel stop? I think it's 20 liters. Love going through this segment of the track, even though I'm not the best at it. Just feeling the car going over to different cambers and different feeling. So now it's within 7 seconds of next car. And we're 17 seconds ahead of Prescott. I'll have to listen to onboard videos of this car, but sounds are pretty good. Norman, yes, we do have our setup ready for moving to rain tires once the rain kicks in. We put that in our fuel strategy before the race began. But yeah, oh man, clouds getting definitely darker. So you can see them moving in. So we'll just have to keep an eye out for when it starts drizzling a bit. We should be able to see it on our windshield, which is nice. Thank you, Studio 397, for adding that in, finally. Adds a little extra depth to this. I'm curious how the Radicals will handle the rain, though. Because the Radicals, they just clocked out. Let's see how far behind we are. Yeah, second place is 20 seconds ahead of us. That's just staggering. First place is 22 seconds up. So, massive gap. I don't know what'll happen when we stop for fuel and change to rain tires. So, let's check something though. So we just passed the halfway point of this race. 30 minutes passed. 14 laps done. So I think because of our fuel strategy, we can reduce the fuel a bit. Oh, it's that. If you go into the store page for rFactor 2, it's available as different DLC packs. So we should be able to go there. I might go to 18 liters. Or 16.9, that should be fine for us, I think. Because we're going to do a little less than 30 laps. Yes, on Steam, oh, it's that. On the Steam page for rFactor 2. You scroll down a bit and you'll see items available, or something like that. Neck a little stiff. Okay, so we got our strategy in place. Now let's close in on this guy. Getting to be under 7 seconds. Fortunately, this car isn't too unpredictable on the curbs. On the throttle. 6.8 seconds, okay. Little tight there. Still not seeing the rain yet. I thought we would have seen it by the halfway point of this race, but okay. There we go. Started seeing some drops. There was a little stutter as we started seeing the drops, but there's the rain. We'll turn on the wipers on low for now. So I think we can still go a lap or so before changing tires. We're gonna just keep an eye on the bottom right, see the rain percentages. 10%, 0 to 1% track moisture. So as the track starts getting a little more wet, we will start noticing the tires washing out a bit more and the car getting a little unstable. Norman, that's kind of a tricky question because it's not just VR that would be required to blow my mind. I'd say part of it's also getting the right technology. So I'd say if we did like 4K per eye, which I think could be feasible in maybe like less than 5 years, I bet. So 4K per eye, but also a wider field of view. I'd say if we could pull off 180 degrees, or even in some cases our natural eyes, I think we tend to see approximately, say, we get to see, I think it's around 210 degrees or so field of view with our natural eyes. So you can kind of see behind the 180 degree plane. So if we could figure out a system for that, which is a lot easier said than done, that would truly blow my mind. I'd say for a great system, maybe 160, 170 degree field of view. Hey, ProSim, how's it going? So we are starting to see a little more activity in this car, so we'll bump up traction control to 4. Make sure the car stays a little stable. So soon we're going to start seeing puddles forming on the track. Track's starting to get pretty saturated, I think. Starting to see rooster trails. Yeah, okay, car's starting to wash out, really. So we're going to need to start adjusting our driving, because generally you're not wanting to actually drive on the racing line in the rain. That's one of the tricky parts because of the rubber and stuff. I don't know how well that's simulated in rFactor 2, though. Generally, real road is pretty good. I am going to pit for tires, though. It is starting to get a little inconvenient. I should have mapped the request pit stop button. I forget where the actual entry point is. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now we are fueling up in the car to get ready for our second run of the race, and we are getting our tires put on. And now we wait. Okay, starting to see some other cars pass us. I'm gonna guess soon we'll see these guys pit for rain tires. It's just getting a little inconvenient. Yep, there's one Corvette pitting for rain tires. 46, 47. There we go. Now everyone's starting to come into the pits.
That was a 3:07.80.
And we'll see how this performs. Make sure to leave the pit safely like that. There we go. And be careful on these tires. Because these tend to have better grip in the rain, but at the same time, I think it's going to be a little trickier to accelerate. So you can see the track is definitely getting more and more saturated. In certain points, we're going to start seeing puddles. Yeah, that pit stop, we went back from 4th place all the way to 19th. Hopefully, as we keep going, we will see more and more cars pit. After this race, I have to get ready for some stuff I'm doing this evening, so unfortunately this race will be ending the stream after this race ends, but we will have some exciting stuff coming tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will be doing the Studio 397 Community Day and testing out the new Sebring release. That will be very exciting. So we're up to 5th place. Just about everyone and their dog pitted there. Looks like the Radicals still haven't yet. Hamilton, I'll think about that. Alright, TM Gaming, you have a great night, man. Get some sleep. But yeah, I'll maybe do a video talking about the differences between GTE and GT3 or something. So 12 seconds behind Rosendo, 13. So he must have pitted, I think. Rosendo, he might have pitted. We were maybe like 10 seconds back pre... Or no, we were like 6 seconds pre-pit. But one thing I just want to comment on, behavior of cars in the rain in rFactor 2 was drastically improved. Before, driving in the rain felt like driving on ice. Now, this genuinely feels more like driving in the rain. I don't know if it's the tire model or if they changed the parameters of how the cars feel in the rain, but regardless, bottom line, it works a lot better. And I am happy about that. We're up to 4th. Car's starting to feel a little less stable. Well, yeah, you can genuinely see it's darker. Shouldn't have shifted down in the first there. Let's turn on the headlights. You can see a little track illumination. Not too much of a difference because it is more like middle of the day. The rain is starting to get louder because we set it so it was going to storm later. So yeah, it is raining harder. Let's see what percent of the track is wet. Saying 90% moisture in some parts of the track. 92% moisture. I'm curious though. I don't know if I've driven an rFactor 2 in storm conditions. Will we actually see thunder or anything like that? Well, yeah, steering is feeling even lighter, I think, because of the rain. Alright, Pro Sim, you have a good race, man. Hopefully you do well. I'm just curious how Rosendo is pulling away so drastically in the rain. Because he's almost 13 seconds up now. Or 12 seconds. A little above 12. At this pace, I'm not going to catch him. I'm kind of curious. Did he ever go into pits? We'll have to check that in the replay after the race. Because I don't know if some cars are just staying out on slicks or something. Getting even darker now. I haven't really used the Crew Chief app myself. I keep on having people recommend it, so sometime I'll check it out, I bet. Trying to take it easy though with this car, because the track is definitely wet. Looks like last place won a lap down. Let's take a look at these rain tires. They look like they're holding up just fine. That's nice. Whoa, 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 okay. First CPU major hiccup right there. That was interesting. Don't know what caused that, but the wheel started jumping around a bit for about half a second. So, looks like there's still some optimizations that need to be made. Not perfect, but major improvement over what we had before. So, I'm happy with that. Ten minutes left in the race. So it looks like we'll get a top 5 unless something really changes. With 100% AI, that's not too shabby, all things considered. What's interesting, because in dry, this would be a 4th gear corner. In the wet, this is 3rd gear. And I know some people might say, why are you not driving with a normal racing line? But the thing is, with how rain driving works, you generally don't want to be on the racing line that much. You want to drive more towards the middle of the track. Or at least that's how it is for some cars. So that's why I'm driving differently for rain driving. And it looks to be doing pretty well. I don't catch Rosendo, but we can at least stay ahead of Gownan. Sort of seeing the puddle forming right where the curb is. Oh yeah, you can see the car starting to wash out, tank slapper, and we're okay. So let's bump up the traction control another click. That might help a bit. So we'll try bring it in here. That's okay. We're just taking it easy. Don't push it too hard. We don't want to lose the car. And we just bring it home in 4th. And I'd be very happy with that result. As we just totally slip. And we're coming up on a lap down car, 25th place. So we just gotta take it easy. There we go. Short shift a bit. Keep the torque under control. Five minutes left in the race. pretty remarkable though. Our best lap in this race was a 2:04 in the dry. And we're clocking up around 2:30-ish. Sounds about right. Just have to be a lot more conservative in the rain. .228.4 or 226, my bad. We're behind this guy now. He should have a blue flag. And we made the pass on the lapper. Three minutes left, so that's about 2 laps. That'd be my guess. Harder on the brakes a bit. We're starting to close in on Rosendo, but I just overcooked the corner. Let's hop back on the track and we're okay. Take back what I said. Ooh, we need to get the dirt off the tires. Let's re-acclimate ourselves. But I would imagine in real life, if it was raining this hard, they would just cancel the event. Or postpone it. It's just pouring right now. In. So this, I think, will be the final lap. Actually, no. It's 1 minute, 16 seconds left, so that means I think there's a chance the leader's going to cross the line within that minute, so I think we might have 2 laps. That's nice. 1 minute remaining. So keep our eyes peeled. What will come first? The time running out or first place car crossing the line? Harder on the brakes, make sure not to go wide there. Okay, looks like they ran out of time, so this is the final lap. It was close. Ease across the final corner. And boom, we finished 4th place. Not bad for 100% AI strength and having to pit in the middle of the race for wet tires, but yeah. That was a fun event, and that's the thing. This kind of race shows off rFactor 2 at its best. Like, hour-long race, you have to pit and strategize and work it out. And then adapt to the rain, and I kind of struggled a little bit, and that I think is partly what kept me off the podium, which is unfortunate, but hey, that's racing, and I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this result, and this is my first time racing with 100% AI. Sure, it was frustrating we got spun out once, actually twice, but hey, the AI was okay. Not great, not horrible. So, yeah. Now I want to check something. Actually, hold on. So, let's take a look. Let's go into the replay screen. So, that's when I pitted. Who am I looking for? Or Rosendo, yeah, that's who I'm looking for. I want to see if he actually pitted. Because I didn't see him actually pit. There it is. Okay, he did pit. So everyone did pit. So, yeah. This worked out pretty darn well, all things considered. I'm happy with how this was, and this was a good race. GT3, starting the day, go into rain. I'm happy. So yeah, remember guys, tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time, adjust that to your time zone as necessary, I am going to be testing out the new Sebring in the Studio 397 Community Day. So that should be very exciting, and hopefully it turns out to be a lot of fun. But for now, I'm William Mars for the SimRacingPaddock, and you guys have a great rest of your day.